Hi, Maria here. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about a perfume that Meleg Perfumes has released just recently called Iris De Glace. First of all, I love the etching work that he gets done on his bottles. So it has a beautiful etching of an iris on the front of the bottle. What I like about Matthew Meleg is he's really big into the artistry of fragrance. He's a self-taught perfumer and he's really about the craftsmanship and the artisanship. He's an artist. You have lots of perfumes that are going to be kind of mass appealing and, perfume companies that kind of cater to that mass appealing fragrance. What I love about Matthew Meleg is he looks at something that he's super passionate about, and then he creates a fragrance around that as an artist, creating something that he's really proud of, that he loves, that showcases something. And so I really enjoy that process. A lot of indie perfumers are actually like that. So I find the same thing with Sunyata. She's not so concerned about making a perfume that everyone's going to love. She's creating a piece of art, and I love that. Now, technically, all fragrance is art in some capacity, but today we're talking about Iris De Glace. Matthew's inspiration behind it was Iris and Orris. Orris butter comes from the iris rhizomes, so kind of like the roots. Now they sit in the ground for quite a long time, like I think 2 to 5 years. Then they harvest them. Then they take the roots and they dry and age them for around 3 to 5 years. So quite a process goes into creating what we know as orris butter. Now, after that has dried for 3 to 5 years, so the process is up to 10 years before you even create the powder that the butter comes from. So after 3 to 5 years, they take those rhizomes, they powder it, and then they distill it. Now, it takes 40 pounds of rhizomes to make 10 mils of orris butter. So there's a lot of product that goes into making just a tiny bit of the orris butter material. And for a good orris butter, you're looking at about $30,000 US for a kilogram of the product. So it's very, very expensive. So one of the things that Matthew decided to do was put a couple lab-grown diamonds into the bottle. So each bottle has, I believe, 2 lab-grown diamonds. You get a certificate here explaining the diamonds, the clarity, all of that kind of stuff is on the sheet. And the idea behind putting the 2 lab-grown diamonds in there is that the orris butter is more costly than diamonds. So just the amount of time, the amount of product, it's a very, very expensive ingredient. When you're using a fragrance that has these beautiful ingredients in, they're very, very costly to produce. So I just think that the whole entire kind of idea behind this is really, really neat. When you receive any fragrance from Meleg Perfumes, he packages it in a wood box that's got some wood burning. I believe he does all of that himself. So everything is packaged with care. He presents it really beautifully. So I really appreciate the care that he takes in packaging the fragrance and then the bottle and the thought behind the fragrance for sure. Now, Iris De Glace starts with green violet and fruity ylang ylang. In the heart, it has green florals, iris, and orris powder. And the base is sandalwood, vetiver, ambergris, and green and white leather, which I'm not quite sure what that is. The essential showcase of this fragrance is the iris and the orris butter. And so that's basically what you're getting. I find this to be powdery but smooth, a little bit earthy, powdery, slightly vanillic is kind of the end result. And I find that orris butter can have an earthy or a leathery vibe. I find that in the opening, it's a lot more green, but then it just kind of mellows out. When I first got it, I found it very challenging, like definitely it was a more challenging fragrance for me, and it still is. I've just recently begun to enjoy iris in fragrances. That said, I think it's a really interesting fragrance to mix with other fragrances. So I'm happy to have this because I can layer it with other fragrances if I want to add kind of that powdery, lipsticky iris feel. this will definitely do that. The more I've spent time with this, I've had it for about a month, the more it's growing on me, but it certainly is a more challenging fragrance. However, if you are an Iris fan, if you're an Orris fan, I really feel like this is an awesome one to add to your collection because it's really highlighting, showcasing. It's basically like a big, huge spotlight on that ingredient. And so for that reason, I really appreciate just the concept behind it. I like the fact that there's a couple little diamonds in there. I just think it's a unique concept. In the opening, I get a bit of a green floral. I don't notice any ylang-ylang at all. I just get Iris and Orris for the most part. Now that said, in the opening, the iris is really quite green feeling. So it's a bit of a green floral iris that starts to morph on the skin, a little bit powdery from the get-go, little tiny bit lipsticky, I would say. As it dries down, it gets a lot more powdery. And then in the deep dry down, I find it's a lot more smooth. There's still that powder feel, but it's like kind of a classy smelling vanilla, like just slightly vanillic Orris. It takes a while to get to that dry down, but for me, the dry down is where this really shines because you're getting a lot of that Orris feel, and I really find that to be quite sexy and sexy, earthy, natural, smooth, sensual feeling. The opening for me though is definitely challenging because it's like a big blast of the iris, and I find it a little overwhelming for me. If you're a huge Iris fan, I think that this is a great one to look at for your collection just because it's showcasing the notes so beautifully. Like I said, the dry down I love. It lasts a long time on the skin, but I don't find that it's a massive projector. So it sits on the skin for a good 10-12 hours, but it's going to be sitting a little closer to the skin, which I personally find sexy in a fragrance like this. So this would be a fragrance, put it on your neck, and then later in the evening, you're going to get just this really kind of glorious, sexy skin smell that's like really quite earthy and like there's a sensuality to it that I really like. So really enjoy that aspect of it. There is a classy nature to this. And what Matthew says is that it's reminiscent to something like a Chanel number 19, I believe. I've never tried that one, but if you like that one, you may like this one. So yeah, this one is definitely not for everyone. It certainly isn't mass appealing. You have to like Iris and Orris, but if you do, it's definitely worth a sniff. If you can get a sample of this, if you'll give you a sample, I think that's a great place to start. But honestly, if you're into the Iris Orris fragrance, then you're gonna enjoy this, I think. So anyway, that is it. Let me know if you've tried this. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And do you love Iris, or is it a note that you're not quite sure of? Leave it in the comments. I would love to know. And other than that, have an amazing week, and we'll talk to you soon.